Welcome to the deep dive. Today, forget the polished success stories you usually hear.
Yeah, we're going deeper.
We're plunging right into let's say, the messy truth of building a business.
And we're using an excerpt from the Founder Truths episode from the 20-Minute Startup Success podcast.
Right. It's a series that, a bit like how I built this, it really doesn't shy away from the tough stuff, the bumps and bruises.
Exactly. This source is great because it really focuses on the pivots, the moments of serious doubt, all the sheer hard work behind what often looks like it just happened overnight.
We always see the shiny end result, don't we?
But this pulls back the curtain. You get to see often the chaos behind it all.
So we're dissecting the story of a founder, someone who took what seems like a simple idea and boom, scaled it into a multi-million-dollar company.
But crucially, it wasn't just a smooth ride-up.
Not at all. We're talking major hurdles, those points where you just think, wow, they must have really wanted to quit.
Well, definitely. And our mission here for you listening is to really get under the skin of this founder's experience.
Yeah, we want to move past the highlights.
Right. Extract those really crucial, maybe even surprising lessons hidden in the journey. We want to give you a real feel for what it actually takes to build something.
From scratch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So whether you're building something now or maybe just thinking about it, or, even if you're just fascinated by how these things happen.
We're looking for those actionable insights, those moments that make you go, aha.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Let's dive in. The story kicks off in a pretty unexpected way, almost like an accidental start.
It is fascinating. The founder talks about how the whole idea just came from a personal frustration, a problem they were actually dealing with themselves.
It often seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah,
The best ideas come from solving your own pain points.
absolutely. And get this, the very first version, cobbled together in a really unlikely place, using super basic tools. It just shows, necessity really is the mother of invention. You don't always need the fancy setup to get started.
Well, and that kind of resourcefulness forces you, doesn't it? It
Mhm.
forces you to nail the core value. When you don't have all the bells and whistles, you have to focus on solving that one fundamental problem.
Good point. And the first sign they were onto something, it came pretty quickly, but from a surprising direction.
Yeah, the founder mentions making their first dollar from what they called an unconventional customer.
Not the ideal target user.
Nope, not some big launch event, just a
Right.
small, almost random transaction. But it was, crucial validation.
That first little bit of proof.
Exactly. That micro-validation, psychologically, it could be incredibly powerful. It's just that tiny piece of tangible evidence that, hey, someone might actually pay for this.
It's the first crack in that wall of self-doubt, maybe?
Definitely. But that early win didn't mean smooth sailing. Not by a long shot.
No. Soon after, they hit a major setback. One that pushed them, right to the edge of quitting. Very early on.
It's a stark reminder, isn't it? That initial buzz can just vanish. Those early hurdles are, well, they're critical tests. It's when that first rush of enthusiasm crashes into real-world problems. That's when you find out if the idea, and maybe more importantly, the founder, has real staying power.
Okay, now here's where it gets interesting. The founder mentions making a counterintuitive decision. Something that turned out to be a total game changer.
Right. The source doesn't spell out exactly what it was, but the implication is clear.
Mm.
They went against the grain, ignored the common advice.
And that unconventional move was pivotal.
Well, it often is, isn't it? Real innovation often comes from spotting and challenging those accepted ways of doing things. That willingness to think differently, to try stuff that maybe seems illogical, that can be a huge advantage.
What also blows my mind is that this founder had zero prior experience in this specific industry.
Man.
Think about that. What do you think was pushing them forward
Yeah.
without that background?
Good question. Probably a mix of things, like a really deep, almost gut-level understanding of the problem they were tackling.
Because they lived it.
Exactly. Plus, maybe strong personal belief in their solution and, perhaps even a bit of helpful ignorance, not being weighed down by knowing all the reasons something shouldn't work.
Right, no preconceived notions holding them back. Okay, so they navigated that unexpected start, got that crucial early validation, survived a near-death moment for the business.
And then came what the founder calls, rather grimly, the struggle years.
Yeah, and listening to their account, it sounds absolutely grueling.
They pinpoint one year in particular as the absolute lowest point.
Yeah.
We're talking as a scary amount of debt.
Wow.
Huge personal sacrifices, straining everything, and a real crisis moment where it felt like the whole thing could just collapse.
It paints a really stark picture of the pressure founders are under.
Intense pressure.
Yeah.
And one really tough lesson from this time was around the team.
Ah, yes. The hiring mistake.
Right. The founder is quite candid about hiring the wrong person. And crucially, why they made that decision. It wasn't about skills, apparently.
Oh, what was it then?
It seems it was based on something else, some flawed reasoning,
Mm-hmm.
maybe pressure, maybe a misguided gut feeling. And it ended up causing, in their words, significant negative impact. Team trauma, even.
Oof. That's a tough one. And a really valuable insight.
It really is. In that rush to scale up, it's easy to compromise on hiring, isn't it? Maybe you go for speed or someone you know.
Instead of focusing purely on competence and fit.
Exactly. And the long-term damage from a bad hire,
Yeah.
especially early on, can be huge.
And adding to that whole pressure cooker situation, they also mention wasting a significant chunk of money.
Yeah, on something that, looking back, was just a totally useless investment.
It's humbling, right? Even when you think you're being careful, you can still make big missteps with resources.
Oh, definitely. But those kinds of financial mistakes, painful as they are, often become really important lessons. They force you to be more disciplined, more strategic down the road.
And the strain of all this, it wasn't just financial or about the team, was it? It hit the founder personally quite hard.
Very hard. They talk openly about the impact on their well-being, specifically a long period of severe sleep deprivation.
That sounds brutal.
Yeah, and the real health consequences that came with it. It just hammers home how all-consuming building a business can be. It affects everything.
It's such a critical reminder. You can't just run on fumes indefinitely, ignoring your health.
It has serious repercussions. Personally, professionally, it can undermine everything you're trying to build.
And looking back on that whole intense period, the founder shares one key regret, something they wish they'd done differently.
Again, the source doesn't give us the nitty-gritty details, but the fact that it still stands out as a major point of reflection tells you how significant it was.
Those regrets often hold the deepest lessons, don't they?
They really do. Understanding these potential pitfalls, even just generally, can be so valuable if you're facing similar challenges.
Okay, so after surviving those incredibly tough struggle years, the story finally shifts towards a breakthrough.
Right. But it doesn't sound like it was just a sudden stroke of luck. More like the result of just grinding it out, resilience paying off.
The founder talks about facing rejection after rejection.
Numerous rejections,
Yeah.
before finally getting that crucial yes. And it came from an unexpected place, what they call an unlikely champion.
An unlikely champion. I like that.
And what's really interesting is the reason why this person or entity said yes. It wasn't necessarily because the product was perfect or the numbers were flawless.
So what was it?
It sounds like maybe it was timing or a personal connection or just some kind of unforeseen alignment of what they needed and what the founder offered.
That's a powerful point. Sometimes the big breaks come from weird angles for reasons you couldn't predict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really highlights why you just had to keep putting yourself out there, keep talking to people, stay open.
So they got that vital yes. How did they then manage to actually scale things up significantly?
Well, they mentioned a couple of key strategies. One was apparently a very unconventional tactic, something that led to major viral growth.
Unconventional. Like what? A unique marketing stunt. A clever product feature.
Could be any of those. The source suggests something creative, maybe non-obvious, that's just clicked with a wider audience. Perhaps an unexpected partnership, too.
Interesting. And they also talk about deliberately stopping something that was standard practice in their industry.
Yes, exactly. They identified something everyone else was doing, maybe considered best practice.
And they just stopped.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
And that decision, that shift away from the norm, dramatically changed their growth path for the better.
Wow. That takes guts. But it shows the power of questioning those assumptions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Constantly reassessing your approach, being willing to ditch established methods if they aren't working, or if you see a different, maybe less traveled, but potentially better path.
And then, looking towards the end game, their exit strategy, they actually turned down an offer from a huge, famous company.
They did. And their reason wasn't just about the money. It came down to a core principle, something fundamental to their vision for the company.
That kind of clarity about your values, your long-term goals.
It's often what separates founders who build something truly lasting. Knowing when to say no, even to a tempting offer, if it doesn't align with why you started in the first place. That can be as important as knowing when to say yes.
And finally, the founder drops what they call their most controversial business opinion.
Yeah, and they explain their reasoning behind this contrarian view. It's clearly meant to make you think, to challenge the status quo.
Okay, so wrapping this up, let's try and pull out some key insights for you from this really raw founder story.
First off, I think, is just how crucial it is to start by deeply understanding, even personally feeling, the problem you're solving.
Right, that intrinsic drive seems to be what fuels you through the really tough times.
Definitely. Second, this story just vividly shows how thin that line is between what looks like failure and eventual success.
It's not about never messing up.
Not at all. It's about learning from the missteps, adapting, and just having the sheer resilience to keep pushing forward, even when everything screams, quit.
And a big potential pitfall highlighted here, something for you to really watch out for.
Seems to be making those critical hires based on anything other than real competency and cultural fit.
Yeah, taking shortcuts there, maybe out of pressure or convenience.
It can lead to long-term pain. That team trauma they mentioned. Avoidable, hopefully.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. What about that controversial business opinion the founder shared?
Yeah, think about its broader implications. What accepted business wisdom does it push back against?
Are there situations, maybe specific industries or context, where that unconventional view might actually be spot on?
Or conversely, where following it could be, well, disastrous?
It's a really interesting angle to consider as you look at the wider world of business strategy, something to mull